Since childhood, Ellie has been curious about astronomy and radio signals. She can spend the whole afternoon communicating with the world through radio, just for fun, and record all her phone calls on the map. Her father always supports her. They often use binoculars to observe space together. Ellie dreams of being able to communicate with aliens one day. But sometimes she also wants to know if she can use radio to communicate with her deceased mother. Many years later, Ellie became a doctor and worked at the Podolsk-Alexei Potemkin Observatory to search for extraterrestrial civilization plans. SETI. Just like her childhood, she spent a few hours sitting in front of the radio looking for signals emitted by aliens to prove that they really existed. Her busy colleagues respected her work, because now no one just sits and listens to her. Ellie began to draw up a new map, marking all the locations in the galaxy she had checked. One day, when Ellie was having lunch at a restaurant, Palmer came over to ask about the current situation at the observatory. He was writing a book about technology and how it affects the books of the 30 countries, and there was a small plastic compass needle. He wanted to give it to Ellie, but he gave it back to her. Palmer began to mediate, and they agreed to meet on Tuesday. Soon, the president's science consultant David came to check on the study, but it was obvious that he didn't want to be there. On Tuesday night, they held a party. David kept explaining how the science project needed money, because he used people's taxes. Ellie tried to explain the importance of scientific research. Palmer defended her, but David called her a father. When Ellie's mood was down, she asked Palmer if he was a priest. He denied this and explained that he had a master's degree in theology, and now he is engaged in secular humanitarian work under the support of the Third World Church. Although Ellie was suspicious, she still left with him. They watched the stars together for a while, so that she could share some of the things she knew. She gave him back the story of how her father inspired her to become an astronomer. The two kissed and spent the night together. After that, they had a philosophical discussion about God and science. Palmer did believe in God, but Ellie thought there had to be an explanation for everything. Then Palmer asked Ellie about her childhood, and found out that her mother died during childbirth, and her father died when she was 9 years old. Ellie felt uncomfortable and announced that she had to go to work, but she asked Palmer to leave her phone number. On the way out, Ellie remembered the day her father died. That night, she heard a sound, and found her father lying on the floor. She had to go back to the bathroom upstairs to get the medicine, but it was too late. Later in the funeral, a pastor explained to her that this was God's will, but Ellie disagreed. She thought she should also put some medicine in the bathroom downstairs. Then she ignored everyone else and rushed to the walkie-talkie to see if she could get in touch with her father. Now Kent told Ellie that David had shut down their project. Angry, Ellie rushed up and yelled at David. David thought Ellie was wasting time, so he had to save her career. Then Ellie went home and found Palmer's phone number with a small compass needle. However, she called Kent and announced that she would look for investors so that their team could continue to study in New Mexico. When she moved out, she left Palmer's phone number. 13 months later, after attending many failed meetings in other companies, Ellie came to Hardin Industrial Company to express her opinion, but the board of directors said that her idea was a science fiction. Ellie laughed and pointed out that all scientific discoveries are just science fiction at some point in history. At this time, the board of directors received a call from Hardin himself, who agreed to sponsor her research. 4 years later, Ellie was still working on a large satellite antenna in New Mexico. One afternoon, Kent brought bad news, saying that they were under pressure from the scientific community and asked them to publish the research results. Hardin is willing to provide years of funding for the project, but these telescopes are owned by the government. They want to rent them to more profitable people. The project is scheduled to be closed in 3 months. Ellie wants to fight, but Kent thinks it's time to admit failure. At the same time, Palmer published her book and became a spiritual consultant at the White House. She appeared on TV and explained that she was not against technology, but she thought people were lost because they were obsessed with computers instead of looking for the meaning of life. As the days went by, Ellie never stopped listening. One night, she was surprised to hear a pulse. She was very excited and immediately called her team and told them the coordinates. Then she rushed back to the observatory. The team was also very excited and began to connect as many machines as possible to turn the satellite at the same time to get better signals. They worked together to track and record everything and were happy to confirm that she came from outer space. She seems to come from a star that is 26 light years away from us. This means that she has been traveling for more than 20 years. Suddenly, the transmission stopped. Ellie is about to lose hope, but fortunately, the transmission started up again soon. Ellie realized that these pulses represent the number. This means that she is not random, but someone specially sent it. After the team discussed how to proceed, They agreed to gather everyone. The next morning, the area was crowded with reporters and national security advisors. The team explained that other stations had confirmed their discovery, but the National Security Committee leaders still publicized the information to the public, instead of keeping it confidential. At least this time, David defended her, explaining that if there was no help from other radio stations, they would lose the signal. With the help of Kent, they found that in addition to the first signal, there was a second signal, and connected it to the TV. The team began to set up, eventually trying to decode the signal into video information. This is the recording of Hitler's speech at the opening ceremony of the Olympics. This is the first time the TV has been transmitted to space. Aliens sent it back as a greeting. The White House was in a panic. The president announced the news of contact with aliens, while trying not to mention Hitler, and assured reporters that the news was harmless. Ellie was ready to speak publicly, but David was called in charge of the investigation. At the same time, Kent continued to analyze the signal, and realized that it had a structure. They put all the extra needles that did not belong to the Olympics video together, and found that it could be converted into a lot of data. Soon, Ellie demonstrated these data. David announced that the government would take over the decoding work. This caused Ellie's protest, because it had always been her personal work. White House official Rachel allowed Ellie to control the investigation, but all progress must be discussed in private with the government first, before it can be publicly announced. Soon, media from all over the world were talking about this discovery. New diaspora protesters took over the streets, and the number of people participating in religious activities continued to increase. The health organization was also worried that some cult organizations had begun to disappear, and large-scale self-deletion could become a big problem. When everyone on TV began to debate science and religion, thousands of people gathered outside the facilities in New Mexico. Some people are just praying, some people are just watching, but there are also many people protesting. Ellie was shocked to find a suspicious organization providing unidentified flying objects to kidnap insurance. At least most people are having a good time, but she was worried that a religious fanatic named Joseph kept inciting hatred. 3 weeks later, Ellie returned home and found an email from an unknown sender. The text said, "Take me to see your leader." Ellie replied, "Who are you?" The answer came out soon, saying, "I have a secret," and showed some alien information. When Ellie was angry at the potential hacker, she received a call and a message asking for a special date. After a while, a helicopter took Ellie to the airport. She boarded a private plane to see Hardin, sponsored his research, and sent those emails. She lived on that plane and regarded Ellie as one of her most valuable investments. This is why she studied it. Hardin played a video summarizing Ellie's life and achievements, and then revealed that he was also an engineer. This is why he hates the government and religion, and hinders science. Then Hardin announced that he had decoded the data and displayed it on the screen, indicating that it must be arranged in 3 ways to understand it. The next day, Ellie reported this discovery to the government, and explained that the data contained a blueprint of a certain machine. Because they didn't know what this machine was for, so they built it and started a debate, because it might be dangerous. The topic of God kept coming up. When Ellie saw Palmer's arrival, she was shocked. She said they should find a middle ground. The president's arrival interrupted the debate. She listened to everyone's opinions. That night, people held a party to celebrate this progress. Many protesters gathered outside, including Joseph. They asked scientists to find a real job, not to waste tax money. Ellie met Palmer and had another philosophical discussion. She explained that she needed evidence, and Palmer asked her to prove that she loved her father. This made her speechless. At this point, the major news leaked on TV interrupted them. People found that this machine was a single spaceship. The White House held an emergency meeting. They agreed to build this machine. Therefore, the president will contact other countries to share the risks and costs. A select committee was established. Palmer was one of the members. They will interview a group of candidates to decide who can ride this machine. What shocked Ellie was that David resigned as a science consultant, so that she could become a candidate. Soon, the media began to discuss how much the entire project would cost the country and who was worthy of such a trip. In the end, 10 candidates caused a lot of controversy, because 1/3 of them were Americans. In addition, Japan would not send anyone to exchange systems and form a package contract. Ellie appeared on TV and said that travelers should understand the language of information, and she didn't think that aliens would send them something that didn't work, so it shouldn't be dangerous. But this didn't stop the best astronaut on the list from giving up the election when her shocked children asked her to quit. Later, Ellie met Palmer and explained that due to the expansion of time, this person would only spend 4 years on a spaceship, but it had been 50 years on Earth. She thought that if this meant finding such an important answer, then the sacrifice was worth it. In the end, they kissed again. On the day of the candidate interview, Ellie performed very well, and the committee was ready to finish the interview. However, Palmer interrupted her to ask her questions about the theory of immortality, which embarrassed her in front of everyone. In the end, David was selected. At night, Palmer visited Ellie and explained that she couldn't choose someone who thought most people in the world were delusional. So Ellie, who was crying, returned the compass needle to her and drove her out. The machine was built by Kennedy Space Center and the crowd began to gather there. They are using robots to conduct a large number of tests to detect any side effects of passengers. On the day of the press conference, Ellie participated in the event. David told her that he hoped her idealism would be enough. But unfortunately, the world is built on a profit system. Then Ellie joined the control room team and watched excitedly how the spacecraft started. Her ring revolved around it like a kind of accelerator. During the final test, Ellie watched the monitor and noticed a worker who pretended to be a ship near Joseph. She immediately warned David that everyone went to report Joseph. But it was too late. She detonated a bomb, a huge explosion, and the stone tower collapsed. When the crowd ran in panic, the fallen parts destroyed the spacecraft and killed a group of workers, including David. Some pieces scattered, but no one was injured outside the ship. After a while, the authorities held a formal funeral for the deceased. The news played Joseph's farewell video. He said in the video that everything he did was for the good of humanity. When Ellie returned home, she found some machines waiting for her in her room. She clicked the next button to start the video call, which showed that Hardin was in the Peace space station. She lived there because she had cancer and her life was in danger. She wanted to spend her last time in space. She zoomed in on the camera. What surprised Ellie was that she saw a second ship built in Japan. The company that obtained the contract was Hardin's subsidiary, and all of this was done secretly. Ellie immediately boarded Hardin's private jet to Japan and met with the team on a large ship. They told her all the knowledge about travel and shared safety precautions, including a bottle of poison. For many years, they have been providing this device to astronauts in case they need to delete themselves, because after the ship breaks down, they may be trapped in space. At night, Palmer visited Ellie and gave her a compass needle, admitting that she didn't actually vote for her because she didn't want to lose her. Soon, the media announced that there was a second machine, but reporters were not allowed to enter the scene. On the day of launch, when Ellie saw all the rings spinning, she was very nervous, but she still went ahead. The technicians made all the connections to her astronaut suit and installed a camera on her head to record the entire journey. Palmer used her connections to bring Ken over, so that she could give Ellie good news. The ship began to vibrate. This is normal, but Ellie also noticed a strange light. She tried to record this process for the team, but the shots were static. She speculated that this must be a kind of electronic field, and was shocked to see the ship become transparent. The countdown began. The team was very worried, especially when the spaceship began to glow and all the numbers on the computer could not be entered. They considered giving up the task, but Ken heard Ellie's voice. He cursed that he could go. Just before the ship finally took off, the sea in the area began to become violent and the spaceship was swaying. Ellie was surprised by the surrounding lights. These lights soon became the most amazing. Here soon became a tunnel. Ellie speculated that this was a wormhole. Although she could no longer communicate with the ground control center, she still described the whole experience. After passing through the area that seemed to be floating, the spaceship stopped, and Ellie saw Vega. She looked around and found a strange device, but the spaceship suddenly took off again. Now Ellie has flown through a series of wormholes, which has a strange effect in the end. She stopped in another galaxy. Ellie noticed that there was a city before the spaceship entered a more violent wormhole and the compass needle began to float. She saw almost nothing, so Ellie left the chair to pick her up. At this time, the chair broke and hit the ceiling, and then the light went out. Ellie opened the flashlight and found an astronomical event that she could not recognize. She was deeply moved and said that she should send a poet to describe her. Suddenly, she found herself floating and then appeared on a beach. This place is also beautiful. It looks like the painting she drew when she was a child. Strokes everywhere will cause her hand to meet resistance. This means some kind of energy or illusion. At this time, a figure began to come to her. Ellie was shocked to see her father, but when she hugged him, she realized he was not real. This is an alien. She explained that she took this form to make it easier to communicate with her. She confirmed that there are many alien races and that humans first get in touch through wireless transmission. Ellie's travel system was not built by her people, but by an unknown entity. Aliens observed humans and thought they were valuable, so they sent a blueprint to humans as the first step for humans to join the other parts. After she said goodbye, Ellie saw a beautiful meteor shower. A light suddenly shone too bright. Ellie found herself back on the ship, and the ship was landing in the Sea of Japan. The team panicked and contacted Ellie and said there was a malfunction and the spaceship never left. After Ellie was rescued, she shared her entire experience, but the camera only recorded static images. She swore that all of this was true, but Gates showed her the footage of the spaceship falling in a few seconds. The next day, the president said it was just a mistake, but soon other countries fell into a legal dispute. The media was full of criticism and conspiracy theories, especially when Gates resigned from his position as a consultant. Finally, the Congress interviewed Ellie. Ellie pointed out that impulse can explain what happened. Time expansion may make 1 second on Earth equivalent to 18 hours in space. Gates called her out because impulse is just a theory and threw a heavy bomb. Haddon is dead. People believe this whole thing was a scam. Ellie cried and begged people to believe her story. She was shocked because she had no evidence, so she asked everyone to believe her. Her speech on respect, humility, and hope inspired Palmer, but the committee concluded that her story was also a scam. On her way out, Palmer and Ellie stood together in front of the camera in a large crowd to tell the world she believed her. At the same time, Rachel secretly told Gates that Ellie's camera recorded 18 hours of static electricity. 18 months later, Ellie is working with an extra radar because SETI now has enough funds to continue operating. The children visit the base during their school trip. Ellie instructs them to find the answer themselves. Please be sure to follow us so that you can watch more similar videos. Thank you for watching.